So this video is specifically to talk about some of the machinations that I went through to get to where I am today, where I am right now, physically speaking. I am mid-journey. This is my first stop. I am in a place called North Bay. It's about 330 miles outside of Toronto. So this journey, as I mentioned in a previous video, began perhaps, I mentioned a year and a half, 2 years ago, but perhaps it began even earlier than that. If I were to take stock of it, it was probably when I was on Wall Street and I began to learn how systems worked and how money worked and how there was the haves and the have-nots. And on Wall Street, I learned that the haves continue to want to have more at the expense of absolutely anybody. They spared no one. If you were unable to afford a home, and I originated mortgage-backed securities for a living, if you were unable to secure a home, loans were given out to those people that they could not afford and then taken back. Why? Who knows? It's not any one particular person's fault. It's systemic. It's part of this greed culture that we live in now, and that's what I'm getting away from. That's what I'm running away from, is this greed culture. Anyway, less philosophizing, and so this journey began in my mind as a remnant, as a thought that I would one day purchase land and live off the land. And I used to say to a very dear friend of mine that one day we're going to live off the fat of the land. That's a line that I got from Of Mice and Men when Lenny used to say to George. It's just something that stuck with me. It's romantically ideal. Whether I will be able to achieve it, that's a whole nother story. Come along on my journey as I try to achieve living off the fat of the land with a white picket fence. George, is that going to happen? So physically, what I decided to do was go completely shed all of my belongings, consolidate my finances, and purchase a mobile home in the form of a trailer, a RV, a non-motorized RV, and a truck. So I'm sitting in the RV right now, so last night was the first night that I actually hitched up the RV. This is the second or third time that I actually hitched up the RV, but the first time that I hitched up the RV to drive it away from Toronto. Before I did that, what I wanted to do was outfit the RV with some self-sustaining technology. One of those technology pieces, one of those techs, is solar or solarization of the RV. So I put 450 watt panels on top of the roof, 3 of them. So I have in excess of 1,300 watts in total that I'm generating on an hourly basis. And obviously there's an inverter, and I search the inverter, and I can leave that in the link below. And there's a bunch of other stuff that comes along with it. The next item that I purchased was a water bladder, and I'll talk more about the water bladder in the future. But again, if we're going back to this theme of resilience, we want to be resilient in electricity, and so I got solar, which makes electricity for free. We want to be resilient in water. Now, along the travel, I imagine that I'm not going to get water every day. And so there's an opportunity for me to be able to pick up water from somewhere else where an RV may not be able to go. And so this is why I'm trying to develop some resilience with water. One of the other things that I wanted to do with the water bladder, which is a 300-gallon water bladder, is to be able to go over to a lake and pump water out of a lake, filter it, and do all of that stuff. And so we'll talk about that too. So the RV, which was used, that I purchased, and I highly recommend that you purchase a used one, because you want to get used to it. And if you're like me, who's a very particular individual, you want to make it yours. The RVs that they make these days, they're made for old men. They're made for old people. They're made for people that are used to living in the lap of luxury, and these RVs are fitted with luxurious items. I don't necessarily want a luxurious fitted RV. I want an RV that's going to be a utility knife. It's going to be that's going to allow me to be me, which is a tech entrepreneur. So I'm going to be teching out this RV and making it. I threw out. Actually, I had two sofas in here, two sofa beds that were absolutely ugly. I'll show you the. I'll show you the awning. I'm not going to take it down right now, but the old frilly awning designs that are not modern, and I wanted those out. Ripped them out, and I threw those frilly curtains out. And I'll be doing something else. I'll actually probably be doing an entire overhaul of the RV. And you can see behind me that the RV has wooden cabinets. They're all old. They're very nice, meaning they're, nice, good solid wood, and there's no scratches on them, so it's very new. But, from an aesthetic standpoint, yeah, it's not my style. I want modern, utilitarian, or utility, has high utility, very functional. So one good rule of thumb that I learned is that everything that you purchase should have a dual purpose. So if you buy a bucket, maybe you can turn the bucket upside down and use it as a mini ladder. I don't know. So things like that. So whenever I look for something to purchase, I will always have that dual utility purpose to it. But beyond that, there'll be more technology that we'll speak about. So I had the RV outfitted. I had the ball bearings all cleaned up, and then I hitched it up. I had it stabilized. We'll talk about the stabilization too in a sub video. So how do you outfit the RV and make sure that the RV is safe? I'm actually parked in a parking lot right now, so that's why I'm in someone else's yard. So I'm just looking at cars and if I'm bothering anybody. So had that all done to the best of my ability. I mean, I told the guys, okay, I want this done, but I don't know everything that needs to be done. So you do the best of your ability. Had it all done. The ball bearings, brakes, all had to be checked. There's some linkages, safety, all of that had to be done. Hitched it up and drove off. I definitely feel like my truck might be a tad underpowered, or my RV might be a tad overweight with stuff that I have. I've got my Wusthof knives and my Vitamix mixers and my coffee makers. Perhaps I think that those are highly essential, but perhaps there might be other things in my RV, such as my books, that I'm not willing to let go of, that I may need to let go of. So the first stop was a bite-sized driving chunk. And so I drove just a short 300 kilometers. And during that drive, I got the feel for the RV. I drove slowly, and I came and I just arrived into town. I've been to this town a couple of times, so I had an idea of a couple of areas, a couple of locations that I might be able to go to. And one of them was Walmart, which was my backup plan. I actually did not want to stay at Walmart because Walmart doesn't provide water. And so I wanted to actually find a place that provides water. And lo and behold, I found a place. It's actually a mosque. It's like a house, and outside of it there's a faucet, and there's a electrical panel outside too. So I hooked up my RV with both water and electricity, even though I have solar, but there's something wrong with the solar, which we'll talk about later. And I was able to take a shower. I was able to do my Wi-Fiing and get on my conference calls, and so that was my first step. I am now on my second leg of the journey, which is going to be a short, maybe 2 hours or so. Again, a bite-sized chunk. I'm going to a major town, and I just want to go to a major town because it's close, and I want to do another bite-sized chunk. And then after that, perhaps I'll take a bigger chunk out of my journey towards BC. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll leave you with perhaps one thing that I learned. I've learned so many lessons, it's ridiculous. The one thing that I've learned is perhaps you can call ahead. I don't like to call ahead. I kind of like to vagabond, and I like to drop into town and check out the town and not be so particular about planning where I'm going to be, because there's still so many things that can go wrong. Okay, there's a grass cutter in the background, and so I'm going to leave it at that, and until next time, take care.